to be in the recording, then please leave.
Bye.
Right.
Code of conduct.
There's always one. Stop it. Stop it with your munching. God. Right. Can everybody see the gorgeous faces of Joe, Ryan, and Simon, and obviously me and Chris?
Yes.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Good. Hooray! So, hello, good evening, and welcome everybody to the Power Platform virtual happy hour. We were doing virtual events before it was cool, and this is now episode 10, I think, possibly. And we're joined this evening by the delightfully saucy Joe Griffin, the wonderfully angry-looking Ryan McLean in that picture, and the soon-to-be inducted in the Munging Hall of Fame, Simon Cobb. Just before we start, I just want to run through a quick code of conduct. To be honest, everybody on these happy hours has always been incredibly respectful and polite, and you're all grown adults, and you all managed to play nicely without upsetting anybody. But just for the benefit of anybody who wishes to hear it or is not aware that we have a code of conduct, it's just some very basic tenets by which we run this this session. Which is just to be aware of others, being patient, being friendly, being welcoming and respectful, being open to all viewpoints and questions, to be understanding of differences of opinion and other differences, and to be kind and considerate to others. If you see any behaviour or comments that you think are not are out of place or not in keeping with this code of conduct, please feel free to escalate it to me, unless, of course, it's me that made the comment, in which case, please feel free to escalate it to Chris or Carl, whoever. But don't be afraid to speak up if you see anything that you think is dodgy. So tonight's agenda of special loveliness, we've got Joe's going to talk us through some advice and an overview of BizApp's learning and certification. Joe's got some, sorry, Ryan even has got some interesting battle stories from his on-premise to online migration. And then Simon's going to delight us with an audio-visual trip down memory lane with his Power Apps Pac-Man, which I think we're all looking forward to. And we've got a bit of, it's just, they're all 15-minute sessions each with a bit of time for Q&A. And there's just a general Q&A at the end of the overall session. So you can either ask the question at the end of each individual session or right at the end. And then at 8 o'clock, it just turns into general silliness and networking. And Chris is allowed to swear again because we're not recording. So here is some. Actually, I might save that for later, but you can have those now if you want them. We've got contacts for all of our speakers this evening.
I like that mine's just Tamara J. Phelan.
Well, you can talk to Alex about that because he's apparently made you into tomorrow this evening. So I will. I'll deal with that.
She's more interested anyway. Follow her.
It's her birthday today.
Oh, but definitely go and follow her then.
Yeah, definitely go and follow her. So I'll deal with Carlos's mistake whilst whilst everybody's speaking. So first up is Joe Griffin. Are you ready to go, Joe?
I am ready to go. So let me share my screen.
And if everybody else could mute while the speakers are on, that would be much appreciated.
Oh, helps if I share the right screen. Give me a sec, guys. Sorry.
You need some technical assistance. I am a technical specialist.
Almost there.
I am not. So, total disclaimer, I am not a technical specialist.
That's a lie. Ask Alison things about licensing. She knows everything.
That was harsh. That was offside, Chris. That was offside.
Sorry, I'm having a mare here. Give me a sec.
That's okay. Are you on a multi-screen setup?
I am, so usually I'm pretty sort of like cool and look at me and my multiple screens, but tonight it's just an absolute fail.
Check me out, Joe Griffith. I'm an MVP.
I'm an MVP. I got the 2 screen. I got the 3 screens. I mean,
I
Jesus
got on the
Christ.
screen.
Oh my god, man.
Hooray! There we go.
Can you see it? Lovely, fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, apologies for the slight technical interruptions. Yep, so today we're going to be talking about how you can get learning and get certified with the business applications range of applications. So we'll first sort of discuss the why. Okay, why should you be learning? Why should you be keeping on top of what's happening with the platform? We'll look at the various different resources we've got available today to help you get learned. We're then going to brush over and look at, okay, what are the current certifications that you've got today and what are the sort of the best starting points around that? If you've got some time at the end, then be more than happy to answer any questions you've got around learning or indeed certifications. So a little bit about me on the slide. As you can see, I am a borderline obsessive badge hoarder. Must have been addiction, surely, I would have thought. But yeah, I'm quite technical, hands-on, like exams, like certifications, stuff like that. So always happy to chat Power Platform, CE, Azure, or data platform stuff. So this is the big question then. So why should we be learning? Well, I think Homer probably sums up some of our frustration sometimes when it comes to learn about new subjects. It feels like, okay, we're trying to, cramming a load of new stuff and then we're just going to lose a whole load of stuff in the process. So, why should we sort of have this sort of top of mind and be continually sort of learning? Well, at the end of the day, we are all doing what we're doing for money, hopefully for a paycheck. At the end of the day, we're wanting to sort of grow and develop in our careers. So really, the only way we can do so is by starting to learn. I think it's really important more generally, and this is a big thing that Satya Nadella goes a lot about, having a growth mindset, having that in terms of how you approach everything, whether it's a new project or new opportunity or just even in your daily work, having that mindset is just so important. We need to keep up with the platform. Things are changing at a breathtaking pace, so if we're not continually learning, we're going to fall behind very quickly. It might be that as we're learning, we identify some new ways in which we can address a problem, maybe get over a particular hurdle that we're facing. We can sort of use learning as a way of being able to develop our story. So if we're going out for interviews, if we are wanting to, make that jump across to a better role, we weave in the fact that we're doing our own learning, outside of working hours, in our own time, and sort of weave that in as we're sort of talking to, potential employers and stuff. Moving out your comfort zone, this is a really important one, so you're never going to grow as an individual unless you do things that maybe, okay, you're a little bit nervous, a little bit sort of unsure about. So by moving out your comfort zone, actually what I find personally is that I tend to perform a lot better than I anticipated by doing so. And finally, if none of that is good enough for you, then you get a nice shiny badge at the end of the day. And if you're like me, you like obsessively collecting them in the sort of vain hope that they're going to start releasing them on, where you can order them and get them put on your bag, then that's a perfectly noble endeavor as well. So when you start to learn out, there's obviously trying to find the right resources becomes a bit of a challenge. So these are sort of my top 5 locations, resources for you to go to if you are wanting to sort of increase your knowledge across anything to do with Power Platform business applications. So I think, particularly at the moment with what's going on with COVID, we've got a lot of free virtual events that are happening all the time. This is one of them, for example. And it's not just the community who are doing stuff, and you can use things such as the virtual event hub to be able to keep track of that. But also as well, Microsoft are doing a lot of virtual training days at the moment as well, covering not just Power Platform, but also Dynamics 365 and Azure as well. The even better thing with these as well is that they'll typically include a free voucher to the equivalent fundamentals exam. So it's a great way of being able to learn and also get a certification in the process. So definitely worth checking those out. They are running various different days at the moment, and they will be, I imagine, across the rest of the year and also going into 2021 as well. So Microsoft Learn is probably the go-to destination for sort of the latest content that is more specifically aligned towards a particular certification. You've got, well over 1,500 different modules and learning paths on there that you can go into. It's a mixture of different content. So you've got some, videos, articles, in some cases lab exercises, so you can go away and start to, learn on your own time. And there's a gamification element as well. So, if badges aren't enough for you. You can actually earn XP, level up, and see how you're progressing towards your particular learning objectives. So it's really worth getting set up with a Microsoft Learn account and at least just checking out some of the different modules and learning paths that you've got on there. So social media. So this is the cop-out option for people like me who are just super lazy. So really, the great thing about being on things such as Twitter and LinkedIn is it provides a really great sort of effectively like a digest of what's happening around it, and you can sort of use it in a way as your own indirect learning tool. So as you've got these new major product announcements happening, as new events are announced, new learning opportunities, typically Microsoft and community members will be out there on social media, basically promoting all that. So if you've not already got a Twitter and a LinkedIn account set up, I really would encourage you to do so. Engage with the community, use some of the hashtags listed on here, and you can start to hopefully get some really useful content into your in-tray every single day. Next, you've got YouTube. So this is more towards the sort of the community side of things, but you've got lots of really great people doing continual videos on a whole range of different subjects. So as an example on here, we've got Matt Collins-Jones, MCJ. He's got basically just a whole year of videos covering every single conceivable topic to do with Power Automate. So that is really great. You can dip into a specific topic that you may need in the moment, but also just watch, get them all queued up and watch them in the background as you're doing having your dinner or doing other things in the evening, just to basically just get learning. So I've signposted to a few other of the different YouTube channels that I sort of check out regularly on there. Certainly a very good sort of place for you to go when you're finding out about learning content stuff. And then finally, the community itself. So I've sort of been involved with and sort of seen various different technical communities, Microsoft technical communities. What I would say about the business applications community is that it has got a different vibe and feel to it. You've got probably a really nice group of people who are always there, always ready, available to help you out. So what I would say, again, be selfish to a certain extent, abuse that, start knocking on people's doors, after this, start knocking on my door on LinkedIn, ask me, okay, well, how can I do X? How can I do this? And just have that mindset. Okay, there are no stupid questions. Okay, we were all there. We were all, at that stage once where we're trying to figure things out, and trying to find the answer to something. So really, just don't be having that illusion that there's going to be a stupid question. Chances are it could be a very good question when it gets down to it. That's what I generally find anyway. So those are some of the tools that you can use to start learning. Once you've done that, you can then consider maybe going for certification. So when it comes to Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, you've got all of these different exams on here covering, a whole range of different disciplines. So everything from Power BI through to finance and operations, back through to our core customer engagement CE applications. So quite a lot to potentially get stuck into. So typically you want to start off with one of the fundamentals exams. So if you're coming at things from a Power Platform standpoint, then the PL900 exam will be the one for you. This is a really great one in that it covers pretty much everything to do with the Power Platform. So whether it's Power BI, Dataverse, Power Apps, Power Automate, lots of content in there regarding virtual agents as well at the moment, which is a topic which I think I'd recommend everyone getting more familiar with because it's becoming increasingly more important. So really, this is a great exam. If you're a bit unsure where to start, definitely check this one out. The thing to mention, though, is that it doesn't actually map to a associate expert or a higher level certification. It's really just about validating your skills with the platform. Similarly, for the Dynamics 365 side of things, you've got the MB901 exam, but this is again more focused towards the core apps in Dynamics 365, so sales, marketing, things such as supply chain management, commerce. What the hell are those? It's quite expansive in terms of what it's covering. So again, probably one certainly for me on some of those would take me outside of my comfort zone, but will give you a really good breadth and understanding of everything that the Dynamics 365 range of apps can do. Then moving beyond that, so from a Dynamics 365 standpoint, I've sort of pinched this slide here from Microsoft. This provides a fairly up-to-date summary in terms of the various routes that you can go once you've got your fundamentals. So typically you'll move to an associate level certification. You'll focus your attention towards a specific app. So it could be that maybe, for example, okay, you want to be a sales functional consultant. Okay, great. So just pass 2 exams as part of that and you'll get that. Then at the far end of that, if you want to earn, a nice fancy, super fancy, certification with a super duper job title to go with it, solution architect. Ooh, sounds nice, doesn't it? You can pass that at the end of it. So really, it covers. They're all very much designed to cover specific roles and specific, things, areas of the application as well. Everything these days is very much focused on these role-based exams. And for the Power Platform side of things as well, again, we've got a similar sort of journey on there. Some recent changes to flag around this is that you've now got the PL 400 exam, which is replacing MB 400, the old developers exam. That will be going live probably in the next few weeks, I imagine. And you've also got things such as PL 200, PL 100 to build apps, and then the DA 100, which is actually quite a good Power BI exam as well. And at the moment, it is the same solution architect exam at the back end of it that you can pass. And again, that will cover both Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. So lots to get your teeth into if you're so fancy. Beyond that, though, if you've maybe done all those to death and you want some more, maybe you're borderline sadomasochistic or something, a bit like me, then you can perhaps maybe go a little bit further afield and see what's happening elsewhere in the Microsoft stack. What I would say is that, when it comes to things to pay attention towards, definitely focus on Microsoft Azure. It's really important that you understand how the Power Platform and how the business applications range of apps can be extended out further using Azure. And really, you really need to be focusing, I guess, more towards the AZ900 exam for that, to get a good grasp of the core concepts of Azure. Then you can dive in a bit deeper, maybe look at AI or data or things like that. On the flip side of that, if you wanted to maybe validate your skills on the Microsoft 365 side of things, that's your Office 365, your Teams, modern desktop, security and messaging, then you have also got a fundamentals exam for that as well, MS 900. So again, definitely worth checking those out, not necessarily so that you can start focusing on, getting to, an Azure solution architect, but more to, I guess, give you that base understanding so that you know what you're talking about and you can see how these fit in. What we need to be thinking, when we're building these solutions, okay, how can we build the most effective solution, most straightforwardly, and really you have to take an entire Microsoft Cloud standpoint when you're reviewing these things, I find. So a good thing at the moment is that if you have been impacted by COVID-19, so whether you've been furloughed or you've been unfortunately made unemployed, then there is an offer which I believe is still running at the moment where you can get certified for only $15. So typically these exams cost around £118 a pop each time, and the exams on offer cover most of the ones that we've discussed today. Some really good opportunities to get certified for a reduced price. So I definitely would recommend that you check that out if you are tempted to, if you are obviously apply and you wanted to sort of help validate your skills a bit further. And finally, just some things to, when you are learning or studying for an exam, some general sort of things just to keep in back of your mind. You've got the ability of being able to open free trials, community plan offerings, so that you can basically get a copy of, let's say, Dataverse or Power Apps and actually build the solutions as you're learning. That is generally going to be the best way of passing these exams. Having that hands-on experience will be essential. What I find is quite useful, if you've got a particular goal in mind, a career aspiration or objective, it's really important that you sit down, you map those out really clearly, write down what you want to achieve, stick it on the top of your wall every day, look at that, remind yourself in terms of what you're working towards, okay, and have your focus really solely in terms of, okay, what am I trying to achieve in terms of my career and in terms of my personal progression? Because at the end of the day, it is all on you. Nobody else is, people will help you out occasionally and try and give you a bit of a leg up, but a lot of this stuff you need to drive forward yourself. Moving on, I think, accept that you can't know everything. Be a dummy. I'll happily admit I'm a dummy on quite a lot of different stuff. So just accept that you can't know it all, and it's actually more of a benefit that you don't get too deep in with a lot of this technology. Get help where you need it to from the community. Reach out, speak to people, bother. We're here to help you. And I guess finally as well, if you have got, if your aspirations are particularly crazy, then don't let anything stand in your way. Don't let people or anything else try and sort of convince you that you can't achieve it. Have your objective in mind. So whether it's, okay, I'm going to get a pay rise, a new job, or simply go, I'm going to learn how to build a Canvas app. You've got your objective. Don't let people sort of try and pull you away from it. Stay focused and just persevere with it, and you'll get to where you need to be. And that pretty much wraps it up. So I think we've got around 20 or 30 seconds for questions.
30 seconds.
30
round
seconds.
Of applause. Round of applause for Joe.
Yay, Joe!
Good timing. Excellent timing.
Joe, one question. If a shark and a bear had a fight, who would win?
Oh, the bear, obviously.
Okay, fine. Next question.
Hang on. Is it underwater or on land?
Doesn't matter. No, there are too many anomalies to talk about this right now.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
Can I be controversial?
Yes.
Say that I'm not convinced about all this structured training business. I've been recruiting for a number of years, and I'm more interested in the person, what the person's done, than how many exams he's passed, because I've seen too many people who've got loads of exams who haven't actually done any real work. Now, I know Chris has got more gongs than hot dinners, as one of his colleagues says. But, you know, I personally go for what's the guy or girl done in the past, which is relevant to the job which I want them to do. And therefore, you know, if they've got one exam or no exams or 100 exams, I'm really not bothered.
Okay. I mean, obviously, hands-on experience, you know, being able to show that you can actually do something, having that propensity to learn is important. So I'd probably argue, okay, if somebody has got passed a lot of exams, they have shown that they're willing to basically go the extra mile. There's two additional things I would say. Really, these days, you know, if you are working in the partner space, for example, exams are becoming even more important than ever before. You're going to have to make sure that all of your team are certified to a certain level using the official Microsoft exams in order to basically hold your certifications potentially. The second thing I would say as well is that, you know, typically, you know, if you can, as I say, weave into your story, if a candidate comes in front of me, for example, okay, they haven't got the greatest experience, but they've maybe been able to tell me a story and demonstrate to me that they've gone off their own back, they've gone off to learn the platform, they've actually paid for themselves to actually do an exam, you know, potentially that's going to help move that candidate forward more, in my estimation, because it sort of shows to me that they are willing to sort of do what they think is necessary in order to try and get them more of a profile and more experience in a particular technology.
As a recruiter, can I just wade in on that one as well? Because some people want exams and some people don't. And I think it's up to the individual whether they want to progress their learning for themselves. But as Joe also said, a number of partners ask for people with exams because it's relevant to their level of partner status, how many people they have certified on certain things. So not every employer looks for exams, but this isn't just about employability, I think.
That's what I was going to say, that as a consultant, you tend to get bogged down into an area, and exams are a great way of stretching yourself and learning as you're going along, and gives you a goal to get rather than just learning for learning's sake. Yeah. It's there's lots of other ways of doing that, but it's certainly one of the ways that I do. I put a goal in.
I used that early on. So when I was trying to get to where I needed to be, I actually paid for myself to do the exam. I put my own money on the line to be able to do that. That was a motivation for me. It helped me to get to, I think, where I am today in terms of my career. So, you know, I get it. You know, it's a money spinner. You know, it's not. You know, it's people basically memorize a load of content and basically proving in front of a computer they can pass. Okay, yeah, I get all of that. But at the end of the day, you know, there is some value, as Carla said, to going out and actually learning about something, and, you know, breaking away from your mold to a certain extent. You know, Carl, you know, as an example, you did that recently. You passed Dynamics 365 marketing. Marketing's not your bag, is it, at all?
No, not at all. And it was just a matter of the one that I hadn't done, and it's just a matter of pushing yourself to understand it. So the next time that you do get a marketing role, you can say, well, okay, I actually know roughly about it. Might not use it in anger, but there's enough there that you can assist and start doing it that way.
I just want to say, guys, Nigel's got a good point, though, because historically Microsoft exams have been horrendously theoretical and never practical. And actually, this set of exams right now is very practical and less theoretical. So you have to know where to click on the form to make the thing save and do whatever, right? So I don't want to delay because I know Ryan's next, but genuinely, what I would say is these exams are designed for you to test if you've had hands-on experience in the system, and if you haven't, you won't pass.
Yeah.
But yeah, good point, Nigel. I just think there's more than two perspectives on the whole situation. So yeah, it's but that's the most interesting question we've ever had, I think, on the virtual happy hour. So
oh my God.
So moving on, we can come back and discuss this later at the end of the session if everybody wants to talk about it some more. But moving on now swiftly to Ryan and his battle stories of migrating from on-premise to online, of which he has a million, I'm sure. But the selected highlights for us today. Take it away, Ryan.
Okay, cool. Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So just a quick introduction to me. I'm Ryan McLean. I'm based up in Edinburgh in Scotland. I work for Hymans Robertson LLP. We are a financial services firm focused on actuarial services, investment services, basically funding and supporting pension schemes. I've been working here for around about 3 years now, and basically the whole reason I was brought into this organization was to help us prepare and then transition from on-prem to the cloud. I've been working with Dynamics for, I can't even think now, about eight years, I think, 10 years in total, working with CRM type systems. I've put my socials up there, so please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter if you're not already. I've also put my website where I blog sometimes about stuff that I find interesting related to my experience with the platform. So please feel free to follow me on there. And if you've got any ideas for things that you'd like to see me blog about, then obviously feel free to reach out to me. And so in the session today, I'm going to talk about my experience with migrating from on-prem to the cloud. So really just talk about why we're going through the migration, what our migration looks like, some of the challenges I faced, and maybe some recommendations I can give to you if you're considering it, or for those of you who work with partners, if you're working with any companies go through this process. Also, I will say I am Scottish. I'm also half Irish, and I speak super quickly. I do try and moderate myself and slow myself down, but if you find me going too quick, just unmute and shout at me, or get Alison to shout at me, and I'll try and slow down for you. So first things first, why bother migrating, right? So for us, our current CRM system is Dynamics CRM 2016 SP1, which actually isn't that old compared to some people I know who are on-prem, but it is approaching end of life, and it's we're missing out on some fundamental platform features. Microsoft obviously are no longer developing for this platform, and so for us, it's getting to a point where actually we're having to fight against it to get some technology or some solutions in place. So that's not ideal. We also have an integration with SharePoint, and we're using SharePoint 2013, which again is approaching the end of life. And so we've toyed internally about upgrading to 2016 or 2019 on-prem or going to the cloud, and our solution really is to go to the cloud. And one of the biggest reasons for us is we have a custom integration between Dynamics and SharePoint. I've blogged about integrating between Dynamics and SharePoint in the cloud, but our on-prem environment was integrated by a former partner we worked with. They did a fairly substandard job, I would say. It's been the technology throttles like crazy. It's poor functionality. It's extremely difficult to maintain. It fails for various unknown reasons. It's all built on .NET, and there's some unsupported customizations in there, which is not ideal. So we've been fighting with this for a while, and like I said, when I was brought in, it was really to think about how we could get away from this, but still maintain the core of what we're looking for in terms of that platform integration. And obviously for us, really, as Microsoft are making more of a play with the Power Platform and are bringing new feature sets to it, well, then obviously people in my business, we have around about 1,000 people in my business, just less than, and over 300 of those work in IT in some form. And so they're clearly very educated and they're aware of what's going on in the Power Platform. So we're getting more of an appetite to adopt the platform. And as people are beginning to explore, and they're getting those community plans that Joe talked about, and thinking about how they can explore things with Power Automate and Power Apps, or looking at virtual agents or RPA, well, then it makes sense for us to adopt that, and then to think about, actually bringing our whole Dynamics environment forward as well, because there would be no point in us having a cloud-based infrastructure for everybody else in the business except Dynamics. That would be, crazy. So that's it. And as a company, really, we have a cloud-first strategy that goes for all of the tools that we develop for our clients. it goes for the solutions that we're doing. So over the past few years, we've migrated to Exchange Online, we're migrating to SharePoint, we're migrating to Dynamics. And generally speaking, we've adopted Azure massively. And as I said in the chat, within our IT department, everybody in the organization by, I think, April next year will have AZ900. And that's something that, as when anybody comes in, it's the first certification we get people to go on. And that's really to understand that actually everything that we do touches Azure in some way. And so it's really important that they understand what it is and how it works. And so that kind of ties into it. So going through our migration, I've just pulled out some of the kind of high level numbers for this, just to give you an idea or a flavor of where it is for us. So our CRM database is 72 gigabytes. So that's 72 gigabytes, not including files, which isn't huge, but it's fairly big for an organization, of under 1,000 people. I would say. In that database, we've got over 200 SSRS reports, and we use those for various different levels of data analytics. So whether that's general reports on here's what's in your sales pipeline, or we've got some fairly complicated ones looking at generating client plans and these kind of things you can print off and take on a train with your go-to clients. So we've got all of those built. We have 380 workflows, which is a not insignificant number. And those workflows are all built using the out-of-the-box workflow tool. Into that, we're feeding in 22 custom workflow activities. They don't include the community-based custom workflow activities that you might have used yourself. So those ones that have been developed by like Aidan Cascella or Jason Latimer or any of those guys. So I use those quite a lot, and I've used those to do quite a lot of functionality in the business. And we also use North 52 as part of this for business process automation to just automate some of our key processes in the business, do some data management. On top of that, we have 102 custom entities currently that are in use for various different business functions. And actually, a large portion of the work that people do in the system, almost 95% of it, I would say, is in custom entities and not in standard out-of-the-box solutions. I'm sure that's not too different to most people. Over 1,600 custom fields across out-of-the-box entities and the custom entities for various things. As I said, our current integration with SharePoint is all managed with plugins, and so we've got 25 custom plugin assemblies doing 82 different plugin steps to do various functions, from creating sites to managing permissions to doing document management, whatever it might be. And SharePoint is really the big beast. It's been the kind of the biggest blocker in the chain, the biggest issue we're dealing with. So we have over 23,000 SharePoint sites related to Dynamics, and that's because we have a SharePoint site for every client, and then if they've got a project, that becomes a site, and then every work stream in that project will have its site, plus an opportunities or prospects, they'll have sites. And so it creates a fairly big sprawl. And you can see we've got over 3.2 terabytes of SharePoint files currently that we're looking to migrate. And alongside that, in terms of automation, we've got 36 JavaScript libraries, which we also have some business rules in place. I'm sure for anybody who's experienced it, trying to have business rules and JavaScript libraries in the same form is not fun. So we've been working to unpick that and to see where we can go, and like I say, moving off some unsupported. And just the last one there is, we've got 863 active users in the organization who are using it out of a total user base of just less than 1,000. So most people in our business use Dynamics in some shape or form. So I think that in terms of the numbers, it's not huge, but I'm the only person who does Dynamics in my organization, so it's big for me. It's only me that deals with this, and so quite a lot of work to put in place and to deal with and to make sure we're on top of it. And so getting on to the challenges that we've had. So the number one challenge in anything to do with this platform is user engagement. It's really just making sure that they are understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it, that they're brought along on that journey. And so I often hear internally, and if you've gone out to, if in your own company, or if you're working for a partner into any of your client companies, you speak to them, go, I don't use CRM, or CRM's not for me. I just don't really need it. But actually, like I said, I've got almost 90% of my users in the organization are using the platform in some way, and so we can see that through the engagement. So it's really getting to understand, what is your business process? What are you doing? What are your pain points? How can we solve those for you? So that's been the big thing for us, is making sure as we plan this transition, that they're on that journey with us. They're bought into the vision that we have. The second piece really is around that data cleanup. So like I said, we have 72 gigabytes of database storage being used, and every gigabyte you use costs you money. So you really want to make sure you're not bringing across extraneous crap. And so that's one of the things we've had to do, is really go through our data and think, well, what do we need? We use Click Dimensions internally, which if you've used it, you'll know it generates just a ton of storage in your database through email events, whatever. So again, just thinking, well, what information do we need from that? Do we need to retain all those records? What does that look like in terms of our audits? Where do we need to have it? So just helping users go through this process and think, well, what's our data governance look like? Can we clean things up? Can we get rid of stuff? Can we archive it? Can we delete it? What does it mean? Replacing the plugins with Flow Azure Logic apps, that's really specifically around our SharePoint integration. And the reason for that is I'm not a developer, so I don't write .NET. I can barely read it, but I'm pretty good with Flow and Azure Logic apps. And so what we're trying to do there is move away from our reliance on external partners. My experience with Microsoft partners has been a fairly mixed bag, but probably more on the poor side. And so we wanted to kind of remove that reliance on externals to develop stuff for us and actually look at what we could build internally within the skill set we have within our business applications team. And so that's what we're doing here, is looking at what we can build within the context of Power Automate flows or Azure Logic apps to do that integration for us. And that means that we can maintain that, we can update that, and we can adapt as the business changes. We're also just removing unsupported customizations because there were some put in place by, like I said, former partners, former people who worked in the company. And so obviously, they're unsupported for a reason. Microsoft are not keen on it. And actually, we've engaged with Fast Track on this, and they wouldn't engage with us if we had unsupported customizations. So we need to remove them, but really just trying to get ourselves back to making sure that the platform is compliant and consistent with how Microsoft have intended it to work. Another big challenge that we've had is my business decided that we were going to change our operating model completely from the ground up as we've adapted. And so that went live kind of mid to late this year. And so we've been talking about it for a while, but what that's meant is a complete overhaul of our security model and making sure that we understand what's happening, but also how that affects all the existing data. So there's been quite a lot of work to re-architect our security model, which is a good opportunity for me, but it's still a lot of work. And like I said, one of the other big challenges are SharePoint migration. When you've got 3.2 terabytes of files, you really don't want to take all that to cloud if you can avoid it. So looking at, well, what do we need to take forward? What can we take back? And it ties back to that data cleanup and also just migrating it. So our SharePoint integration currently is based on a parent site of a client and then subsites underneath that. But Microsoft best practice says you shouldn't have lots of subsites. It should be your hub site in the middle, and then everything else is spokes off that so they can be reparented. So we've been looking at how we flatten that model, make sure it's much more compliant with Microsoft best practice. And then licensing, which is an inevitable pain. We, with being on-prem, had a fairly good perpetual licensing model with Microsoft. It was relatively cheap. Moving online has been a completely different kettle of fish. And so trying to work out what the best balance is between team member licenses, Dynamics sales licenses, Dynamics plan licenses, Power Apps per user licenses, Power Apps per app licenses. So just trying to think what best fits our security model and our user model, sorry, and what we can do with that. So we've been working with Microsoft trying to figure that out within the constraints of our enterprise agreement with them. And so just thinking about some recommendations. So the first thing is just document every decision. If you've done any projects, I'm sure you've done it in the past where you agree something with somebody, you think you're working to a shared kind of idea or shared kind of decision, and then 3 months later you go, here's the thing I delivered, and they go, well, I didn't say that. And so we experienced that kind of early on in our project is, we would do something because we agreed something, we had a shared understanding with the business, and then we realized that maybe the goalpost has shifted. So having something written down, have them sign on the dotted line, have them sign in blood if you need to, making sure that that's all written down, super important. Also, as part of this migration, it's a good opportunity to review your business processes. As the platform changes, it's more adaptable and it allows us to think, well, why are we doing that? Are we doing it just because that's the way we've always done it? Or because that's the way it should be done? And so just taking this opportunity as we move and through this user engagement to think, is there anything we could change, anything we could do differently, and bring that in as part of your overall kind of project. And also just making sure you're implementing proper governance as we move online. So if you've not looked at the Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit, then highly recommend it, making sure you're putting in place the governance to help your platform scale as people get used to it and as your needs kind of grow. Also just embrace the opportunity. As you move forward, obviously the Power Platform is ever changing, but it's bringing in so much new functionality and so many new opportunities for you to do things for your business. So if that's as simple as improving the UI or the UX with Power App's control framework controls, or bringing in model-driven apps or Canvas apps. Just think about what you can do to embrace that opportunity and make life better for users. And also just plan for change. Change is hard for everybody. Nobody likes change, in my experience, ever. And so thinking about what that means, it's not just your platform, it's how your business operates. And so, CRM generally tends to be at the heart of everything a business does. So make sure that you've planned for what the user pain points are going to be with the transition. Janet Robb does a lot around the Prosky model. If you haven't heard of it, look for it. Look for her sessions when she speaks, because she's amazing. But really think about how you can bring users in. And also for us, we've worked with Fast Track. If you've got the opportunity to work with them too, absolutely do it, because it will make your life a ton easier. And so, yeah, that's really it. And that's the end. I think I'm under time.
Yes. Also well done. By 1 minute and 15 seconds. Round of applause for Ryan.
Well done, Ryan.
Does anybody have any questions? There was a few comments going up about field limits and maximum numbers of fields and stuff like that. Hasn't Clarissa already dealt with all of this for everyone?
No.
Is this something different?
So your experience with Fast Track is interesting, Ryan. So, and they've released a lot of stuff recently off the back of not just your experience, but their experience. So have you managed to review any of that yet, or?
So with Fast Track, what I found really useful is when we first talked about migrating. Well, first of all, the reason it's really good is it's free. When we first talked about migrating, we spoke with a partner, and they were going to be quoting us somewhere in the region of £300,000 to do a migration from on-prem to the cloud, which it was a really easy sell internally to go from 300 grand to free. But also just the fact that actually they'll validate your database, they'll go through all the steps, and so that whole validation is super useful. And actually, I just did another dry run today, and you get this amazing output of everything that is compliant, not compliant, what needs to change in your organization. So as you go through that, you can think about what you need to do, and they're just like super easy to deal with. They're happy to kind of answer any stupid questions you've got, and they're happy to kind of engage with you in the process. So I found as we've gone through as well, it's become easier. So the Fast Track approach using the Lifecycle Services tool is ever changing. One of the big changes they made recently is that it used to be you had to create an Azure subscription. They would use your subscription and charge you for staging, because when you go from on-prem to the cloud, you basically take a backup of your database, pop that into Azure, and then it stages through each of the upgrade steps to the latest version, and then you migrate to your sandbox. And so because that's now on their database, we don't pay any cost for that. So we get no VMs running, no costs with Azure that are escalating. So that's been a lot easier to deal with. And it means as well, for any kind of diagnosis for anything going wrong, they're on top of it 100%. So any snags, they're fully on top of it.
They've just reduced the levels as well, haven't they, now? So they're making that more available.
Yeah.
Which is great. You're muted, Alison.
How was it? How was the experience with the actual business transformation? Because you mentioned that the business changed and the processes have changed in the through all this planning and so on. So how much of a pain or pleasure was that?
A pain. So no, I think like the big thing for the business was really understanding when they were making the change, what they meant by the change. I think, you know what it's like, the kind of the execs get together in the room and they think, wouldn't it be great if everything was different? And then they really think about what it means for us on the ground. And so the biggest pain for us was thinking about how our operating model from the old world to the new world did a mapping. So we have, like I say, a ton of data in there, and so that all had to map so we could report back on MI and look at annual trends and whatever else related to our sales pipeline or related to any of our ongoing work or anything we're doing with our clients. And so that was quite a difficult thing to do. And also it changed our security model fundamentally. And so that was, the dynamic security model is not easy at the best of times. But on the flip side, it created an opportunity for us to really think about how we could re-architect, because if you're trying to change everything from the ground up, it can be really hard when the business isn't changing. So for us, it actually was a bit of a blessing in disguise. As painful as it was, it's worked out really well, because we've been able to think about how we can adapt to that needs of the business and rethink that security model to make sure we can build it up properly, rather than this kind of it was put in place, and then we've kind of done minor changes here, there, and everywhere, and it becomes this kind of patchwork quilt sort of approach, which it's just a pain to think about. So being able to rethink that and do something properly has been great for me.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Also, Philip Cole asked, did you find customizations or functionality that wasn't used and you were able to cull?
Loads. So there is there's two tools I use. So there's I can't remember the one. There's one in the XRAM toolbox that you can use, which basically shows you your field utilization by entity. So that's been really good. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll think about it. I'll come back to you on that one. But that was really useful just in terms of seeing when you put a custom field in, how is it used. It is a fairly kind of broad brush of stroke, and some things a field is put in for specific business functions. So you need to factor in that it might only be used 5% of the time, but that 5% is actually 100% utilization for that business function. So you need to be aware of that. The other tool that I found so useful is Mitch Millam has put his snapshot tool available, and it's around about $300 for a year subscription, and it basically exports literally everything about your database that you could ever think about out to like Word and Excel sheets. So that is all custom fields, all custom entities, your security model down to detail of person, your views and your forms, all of the metadata related to those. And so being able to take all of that documentation off and do that review made my life a lot easier, because I was able to engage with people much kind of cleaner and understand it. And also thinking about like where you're changing a custom field, you've got like hundreds of personal views and system views. I could just do a search in a Word document for the field schema, and it would show me all of them. And then I can go through the detail of that and explain and deal with the users. And so nothing you can't do in the platform, but sometimes it's a lot easier to take things offline. And so that tool I would highly recommend if you get the opportunity to try it out. He has a free version on his site as well, so just give it a shot.
Coolio, thanks, Ryan. We are going to have to push on, guys. If there's any more questions for Ryan, we'll have to do them at the end, because right now it's time to thank Ryan very much for his presentation and move swiftly on to Simon Cobb with his Power Apps Pac-Man, not a euphemism. So are you ready to take it away there, Simon?
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Let me share my screen so you can all see it. Let me know when you can.
We can see it.
Bingo. Right, I'll give you a bit of background. So when I taught myself JavaScript, I set myself a goal of writing Pac-Man, and I thought if I can write Pac-Man in JavaScript, I can prove to myself that I understand JavaScript and I know what I'm doing. And I mentioned this to a colleague at work, Clarissa, and she said, well, why don't you write Pac-Man in Power Apps? And I just thought it was a crazy idea, because you can't do it. You've got nowhere to put a main loop. And there were more reasons not to do it than there were reasons to do it. But after 3 sleepless nights thinking about writing Pac-Man in Power Apps, I actually worked out a way that I thought it might be possible. And within 4.5 days or a week, I had it all done. One of the things that I wanted to do, though, was to have it complete. So if you've played Pac-Man, you'll know about the bonus fruit, you'll know about the sound effects, and you'll know about the eyes that go back into the middle when you catch one of the ghosts. So I wanted to include everything. And I didn't think the platform would let me do it, but I'm going to show you what I came up with. So here we go. So it's fully featured. All the ghosts have different personalities. We've got the power pills I'm going to try and grab hold of and catch some ghosts. Let me get the fruit.
You just need a bit more skill, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me try and get one over here. I'll just catch a ghost. I'm not going to clear the screen. It'll be a bit tedious, but let me just show you some of some of the features. You can never catch them when you want to. Here's one. So get the eyes that go back into the middle. Let's see if we can catch this one at the bottom. And it's fully featured. It took me a week, and I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. The sound effects drive me mad, so I'm going to turn them off. Yeah, that's Power Apps. Power Apps Pac-Man. And if anyone's got any questions, or yeah, be happy to answer any questions.
How the holy...
Simon, do you want to give them a peek behind the code?
Yeah. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges. But the code actually is quite compact. So there's not a huge amount going on really. Managed to get it all nice and compact. If we look at some of the basics, so the screen is essentially, if you put a grid 16 pixels by 16 pixels over the playing area, you'd end up with 28 by 32, a grid of 28 by 32 high. And if I look at, well, if I show you some of the code, let me have a look at the code on this button. We can see here we've got various play fields. This one here called dot field, that indicates where all the dots are on the playing area. A 1 indicates there's a dot there, 0 obviously indicates that there isn't. This one here, Pac field, that's the area that the Pac-Man can move around. So the X and Y coordinates of the Pac-Man get transformed into a row, one of these rows, and then an individual character on the row to determine whether the Pac-Man can go in that direction or not. The ghosts follow this play field here. 0 indicates that the ghost can't go into that square. A 1 indicates that the ghost continues moving in the direction that it's already going. And then anything else is a junction to change the direction of the ghosts. So we've got all these maps going on that drive the game forward, really. It determines where on the board the ghosts and the Pac-Man can go, where the dots are, and that's really the key to how everything is connected. And so one of the things that I was concerned about was the dots. How do we turn the dots off when the Pac-Man goes over it? So I mentioned we've got the dot field, which contains the 1s and the 0s to indicate where the dots are. Now this is just a collection of strings in effect, and the data being the string with an ID for the row. So the Y position of the Pac-Man is divided by 16 because we're working in 16 pixel grid, and that gives us the row. The Y coordinate gives us the row of the data, and then the X coordinate of the Pac-Man, when you divide it down by 16, gives us an individual character. So we can determine whether there's a 1 there or a 0 there to determine whether the dot is on or off. If there's a 1 there, we can then just change it to a 0. And then the actual dots themselves are each row is a gallery. So I've got my gallery down here. Let me get the top row. Yeah, so this is just a gallery. Each dot is just an element in the gallery. Let me zoom in on it. And we turn it on and off. No, it's not that. There we go. So the visibility is just whether there's a 0 there in the row at that particular character position. That determines whether it's switched on or off. And as the Pac-Man goes along, we just reset the character position to 0, and that just automatically then sets the gallery to turn the dots on or off. So that's a bit of an insight into the way it works. One of the issues I did have was actually controlling the Pac-Man. Obviously, we don't have a physical joystick, and the buttons only fire when you actually click on them. If you keep your finger clicked on a Power Apps button, it doesn't continually fire. So I had to come up with a method of moving the Pac-Man and ensuring that it goes where it's supposed to go and not outside of the play field. I've also got the score, obviously that's important, and the number of lives as well. We've got bonus fruit, the power pills. It's a fully featured, fully working version of Pac-Man. It works in 2 speeds, so if I restart it in fast mode, it's much faster.
Incredible. So is it that obviously there's a lot of work there, but is that because you've done it before in Java, you've used the same techniques and principles effectively?
Let me just stop it, hang on. Yeah, having done it before, obviously, you know, I had an insight into the logic behind it. But actually, the biggest problem was the functionality of Power Apps in terms of what you can and can't do. It's a totally different way of programming to JavaScript, and as any JavaScript and Power Apps developer will tell you, some things are easier, some things are harder, some things you just can't do. So it's a case of, initially when I started thinking about doing it, I just thought you can't do it. There's just no way that it can be done. But then that, you know, I like a challenge, and I thought, well, if ever there was a challenge in Power Apps, this is it. Because I really thought you couldn't do it. I thought there was no way it could be done. But then, as I said, after 3 sleepless nights, all I thought about was how to implement it in Power Apps for 3 nights solid. I kind of came up with concepts that I thought might work. And most of them did straight out of the box, actually. Most of the ways that I thought about doing it did work, including turning the dots on and off. I thought that was going to be a tricky one. So yeah, having done it in JavaScript, it did help, but I think yeah, it was different ways of working. One of the things I would say though is how stable the Power Apps platform is, because this is really pushing it, and you know, I found it to be very, very stable, very good to work with.
What's the next game you're going to be doing?
You know, somebody else asked me that actually, and I think, you know, when you know you can do something, it's not a challenge anymore.
Do Witcher 3.
Pardon? Yeah, so Donkey Kong was mentioned, and I had a look at it, and I thought, yeah, it is doable, but because I know it's doable, it's not much of a challenge. So kind of the excitement of doing it is lost a bit. I think trying to do something that you don't think can be done is a lot more exciting than doing something that you know you can do.
So Simon, what's the logic to get the eyes back into the box? Because
right,
yeah, it
right.
intrigues me.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's pretty straightforward. In fact, that took me about 20 minutes to do. So the eyes are
really
pretty straight. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I'll try and explain it as best I can. So we've got a map. As I mentioned, everything was driven by maps. We've got a map here called return field. This returns the eyes back to the center. Now you can see here we've got lots of R's, D's, L's and U's for right, down, left and up. So wherever the eyes can be on the map, so the ghost can't be on a 0. These are out of bounds for the ghost. So if we take down here, this R here, the eyes will initially move right, then up, then right, then up, then left, then up, then right, then up, all the way up here, then left, then down, and then the back into H for home here. So it's all it's all predetermined. It looks as if it's using AI to guide them to where they want to be, but in actual fact, it's all predetermined. The map, the route for every position. As I said, in effect, the play field is a 28 by 32 grid. So for each of those 28 by 32 positions, there's a predetermined route back to the home. So it does look really clever. I've got to say so myself. It looks as if there's a lot of intelligence going on, but the reality of it is there's absolutely no intelligence going on. It's all preordained or pre-planned.
And that was intelligence. So really nice. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
You know what, man? Like, I've never been a fan of games and canvas apps because I've always been like, yeah, it kind of makes it like a toy. And then after chatting to a bunch of my mates that actually write games, the way platforms are tested is by building games, because it is the most complex form of build you will ever find. And if you can make a game in something, you can do anything with it. And in my opinion, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I feel like the way that you've done this and the way that you've thought this out is bloody smart. Like like I understand the grid references. I'm a chess player, so I understand the grid references and I get the concepts of like the X and Y and moving stuff around. And this is just incredibly clever. Like this should be in front of the product group, in my opinion.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Well,
Brian Dang has already seen this.
Yeah, this needs to go further than that. I definitely think this is Simon, you should be incredibly proud of what you built here.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that I'm most incredibly proud of is doing it in 4.5 days, because to take something that you initially think is impossible to do and then to turn it around fully featured, all singing, all dancing, no known bugs, works at, as you would expect it to do. I'm proud of getting it done in 4.5 days because, as I said, I didn't think it was possible at all.
Well, even the concept in general. I mean, you could have done a third of this and proven this is awesome, but you've done a lot more, dude. I really do think that this is incredible.
Yeah, well, when I started doing it, I initially had one ghost moving around, and then one ghost to 4, and
mate,
I
find the pattern. That's all you do. When you find the pattern, the rest of it's not too hard.
Well, I think it was realization that it actually was possible. I think that was the key to it. As I got more and more of the way through it, I realized that actually it was actually doable. And once I got the dots being picked up and knew that was working, then I knew the rest of it was home and dry. Yeah, delighted that you like it, because it is something different. It is something a bit unusual, yeah, I'm glad it's made an impact.
In the great words of Paddy from No Likey No Lighty, I don't like it, I love it.
What I would say was, after 4.5 days, I'm glad I put the sound effects in at the end, because if I'd have put the sound effects in at the start, I don't think I would have got it finished, because it absolutely drove me mad for the last couple of hours that they were in for.
Can I ask you a favor? Could you grab me a couple of screenshots that I can bomb over to a couple of people that I know? I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about. It's not necessary. It's more the math than anything else, and I think that this is very clever, dude. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah, I'm delighted. I'm delighted and glad you like it.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. I think round of applause for Simon. That was awesome. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure there's there's other people with questions, so I don't know whether or not Simon wants to hang around and answer some more questions.
For as long as you need me.
But just for the purposes of finishing off the recording, I'll just ping through the rest of the slide deck that we have, which I'm sure everybody's desperate to see. So, Okay, so just finishing off, a massive thank you to our wonderful speakers, Joe, Ryan, Tamara McLean, and Simon Cobb. Thanks for those awesome sessions. Oh, Meg. That was Carl, that wasn't me.
And he left the meeting a little butthole.
Yeah, he did. That's classic vintage Carlos right there. So some of the other events that are coming up is Power Platform Ireland, Intro to Project Operations, very exciting. So that's the 26th, which is tomorrow. And 1st of December, Virtual Power Group having a flow surgery, which I'm assuming is with Matt Collins-Jones, and they're normally completely awesome. So definitely worth going. Global Con 4 from the 1st to the 4th of December. The CRM UG aided and abetted, not aided and abetted, organised by the venerable Andy Bibby. Power Platform User Group on the 3rd of December, which is the Thursday, I think, and then FinOps Saturday on the 5th. Power Apps Nights from the Virtual Power Group on the 7th of December. The CRM UG Birmingham on the 9th of December. Certification Saturday on the 12th of December, and the next Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour on the 16th, which is the Christmas special. So that's obviously going to be pretty silly. And tomorrow night on the Badger, I think, for anybody who's badgering, tomorrow night I think is the draw for the Secret Santa. So make sure you don't miss out. We've got a feedback form here for the first QR code, and if you want to be on the mailing list to make sure that you don't miss out on future happy hours where we're breaking such amazing talent as Simon, then please join the mailing list and you'll get a reminder to come and join us when the next event is happening. And that is it. It says slide 9 of 10, but that clearly is the end of the slideshow. So all that remains is for me to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just think that we have an opportunity to grow the community, so we should do. I know that everyone's got virtual event fatigue and like we're all pissed off with coming to calls and looking at cameras, but you have to remember one thing. This is a lot of the time the only interaction we have. So let's make it count. And to all the speakers that came tonight, Joe, Simon and Ryan, I really, really, really personally appreciate the time that you guys put in, and I learned a lot. So thank you very much.
Me too, seconded. Yeah, very great. There's very good information in there. Lots of useful stuff, as always, in the virtual happy hour. So I'm going to stop recording now. So if anybody wants to pile on to poor Simon for a bunch of questions, then feel free.
Sure, yeah, man. You know when you have one of those,